Today, we're joined by Tessa Stuckey, a licensed counselor and parent who helps families build healthy, mindful relationships with technology. She brings a compassionate, grounded perspective on what it really looks like to raise kids in the digital age. Awesome. Well, Tessa, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so happy to have you. For anyone listening who might not yet know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in the work that you do?
Yeah, so I'm a therapist out of the Houston area, and about 11 years ago, I decided I wanted to help teenagers. That was my main goal, was just to help them through typical stressors and issues. I grew up not getting along with my parents during those years and have always felt passionate that the parent-teen relationship can work.
Right.
And so I wanted to help teenagers achieve that with their parents. And I'm also a mom. I have 4 kids. And one of the things that just hit really hard when I started working about 11 years ago was how different today's world is. I was still in my 20s when I started, and I thought, I'm relatable. I can talk and help with these young hearts and souls. And I was very quickly woken up with the reality that I felt so disconnected from youth and from everything that they were struggling with. And a lot of it had to do with screens and social media. So being a mother of 4, and at the time I had 4 under 4. So at the time I started, my oldest was 3, and then I had a 2-year-old, and the twins were babies, newborn babies. And I was losing sleep not only because I had 4 toddlers and babies at home, but also because my clients, it was just bothering me so much what they were going through and the darkness that they were struggling through with their mental health, but due to this new world of technology. And I've made it my, work's mission to figure out what's going on with that and how to parent, considering we are surrounded by tech constantly.
You talked about how what you realize that's different that parents and teens are navigating is this new world of technology and social media. So how do you think your approach to kids and technology might be a little different given your background as like a counselor?
I wish it wasn't so different. I grew up, both of my parents are therapists as well, and I hated everything that they would instill in us as parents because I just thought it was because they were therapists and they're overreacting, overanalyzing, and making such a big deal out of everything. And when I became a therapist, I vowed that I wouldn't do that with my own kids. But I am 100% taking what I learned from work and applying it to my everyday parenting, and then sharing that with anyone who will listen to me. And I remember it was, I think, 2015, 2016, starting off at like my kids' preschools, because trying to get in to talk to the other preschool parents to say, your kid doesn't need an iPad while you're walking him into the school to drop him off, basically. And I was laughed at, and I was dismissed, and I was rejected a lot in the early years. And then I wrote a book about it. And so now people know where I stand, right? So when I get new clients, it is specifically to help them with depression, anxiety, parent-teen relationship, how to manage screens and social media, how to understand the harms of social media, and that sort of thing. And so I'm parenting my own kids with that mindset and working with my clients in that way. And I feel so strongly about it because most of my clients were struggling with such dark thoughts. And when I started to recognize that there might be a correlation with how much time they're spending on their screens and what they're doing on their screens, and we started to make adjustments, it was like night and day. These kids completely switched over into learning how to cope in a healthy way and live a healthier lifestyle, all because we brought down the screen time and kind of monitored what they were doing on their screens. And so for my own job, it shifted when we started looking at it from the screen perspective. And so I mean, I just feel so strongly I will never not talk about it, you know, because it really and truly is such a huge thing in today's world that's consuming our kids.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. You kind of touched on this, but is there like a specific tech moment with your own kids that taught you something new or kind of shifted your perspective when it came to counseling?
Yes. So when it came to counseling or when it came to screens?
Oh, when it came, let's go with screens.
So like I said, I had 4 under 4. So I was that mom that was very reliant on the iPad and the TV. And I remember when my oldest was 2 and I was pregnant with the twins and I was just nauseous and sick and exhausted and trying to keep the 2-year-old and the 6-month-old just from getting hurt. It was really nice to have something that would keep them in one spot and keep them occupied. And I remember my friends being like, oh, you need to download this new monster truck game because my son loves it. And I have all boys. So I was like, yeah, let's do it, whatever it takes. And so 2 things were happening simultaneously. I started noticing my 2 older boys, their behavior. Every time they got off the iPad or every time we sat down at a restaurant, that was the first thing that they would request or throw a fit over. And I could not get my phone out quick enough to hand it to them. And I remember feeling uncomfortable that this is what we're just putting in their face or handing over to them. Like, this can't be it, right? Like, generations and generations before us have parented kids without the ease of a screen. So, and why is he freaking out so much? I didn't like it. And then at the exact same time was when I was working with these teenagers who were struggling. And it was a light bulb moment with one of my clients. I can remember what office I was in and her name and everything. And she said, Tessa, I want everything and I want it now because I've grown up with like an instant fix to everything. And I was just like, oh my gosh, you're 15 and you've never learned how to cope. So I need to make sure my kids learn how to cope. And that means being bored or being upset about something or having to wait when we go to the restaurant, you know, without throwing these massive fits. And that was the moment that everything took a huge shift with my own parenting. We got rid of the iPads and TV was very minimal and we struggled through and it was not easy. By all means, it was not easy. Luckily, my twins, they don't love TV or screens. So that was never an issue for them. But maybe because I didn't introduce it to them too, right? Like they did not grow up with an iPad at all. And so the 2 older we had to figure out a new norm in our house. And I'm so glad I did because now they're 14, 12, and the twins are 10. And we just don't struggle with the things that so many families come to me about, whether it be about social media or playing Roblox or sneaking on at 2 a.m., you know, to play a video game or anything, or won't do any homework or go to school unless they get more screen time. You know, we don't struggle with that layer. Parenting is already hard. And so that extra layer is really hard for families.
Yeah. Wow. I can imagine. So when you're talking to parents and teens, you know, about technology, about their social media use, whatever it might be, what's maybe like the most common piece of advice or the one you really try to make sure you drive home with them about like their relationship with technology?
So I guess I have a lot of them, right? But I guess the biggest one is learning how to regulate without devices, learning how to sit in the discomfort, struggle through, feel your emotions, and cope through them properly. And the hardest part of that is the parents have to learn to sit in the discomfort. It literally hurts my heart when one of my boys is going through something and I want to fix their problems. That's natural. But if I fix their problems, they never learn. Sorry, I touched the mic. Okay. if I fix their problems, then they never learn how to, work on themselves, struggle through anything, and build resilience. And so we live in a world where everything is instant. And if we provide that instant fix for them every single time they're uncomfortable, then by the time they hit those hormonal years, it's really, really hard for them to get through typical life stressors. With all of that said, I'm not anti-screen or tech. I do believe that there is a way for us to blend screens into our kids' upbringing so that they learn how to be on technology in a healthy way and not create a dependency on it. And so learning those boundaries and the balance is really important for parents. And I love them starting it when they're super young, obviously. But I've worked with so many families who kind of create a reset for their kids who are seemingly unmanageable, or there's an issue within their family dynamic due to the screens and or social media. So yeah, the instant fix, not learning how to self-regulate, but also understanding that that means that there's going to be boundaries and some balance with it.
Do you have any suggestions for how parents can navigate the tough or uncomfortable conversations around tech use and those online experiences?
So I think first and foremost, it's important for parents to admit that they grew up in a different time. That even myself, I'm almost 40 years old, and I grew up with AOL Instant Messenger and email and eventually MySpace and Facebook. And I can't understand how hard it would be to feel the pressures of social media and Roblox and everything that your friends are doing online. So I think first and foremost, in order for our kids to feel safe and comfortable with us, we need to admit that I'm doing this for the first time too, right? That's what I tell my 14-year-old all the time. I've never parented a 14-year-old, first of all, and I certainly have not, done this with screens. So I'm learning too. So feel like this team spirit is very helpful. You want your kids to feel like you're on their side and there is growth, and eventually they will have more freedom and they will have access to things. You just want to make sure that it's appropriate and healthy for them. Also, sitting with them in whatever comfort zone they prefer. So if they like to play basketball or swim in the pool or jump on the trampoline, you join them where their zone is, where their interests are and what they like to do, so that they feel most comfortable. And after a while, they will start to open up to you about anything. You always want to be their main source of information. You do not want your kids to hear something at school and go straight to Google. You want them to come straight to you. And so in order for them to feel safe with you, you have to be in their space, in their comfort zone, but also be available to hear those things. They will come home and say things that you cannot imagine an 8-year-old talking about. And it's because kids at school are either seeing something online or someone else who saw something online told that, and it's this game of telephone. The piece that's so important is for your reaction to express something that is telling your kid, okay, let's talk about it. Or, yeah, that must be hard to understand, rather than signaling to your kids, oh, I shouldn't have told my mom this, or I shouldn't ask my mom these questions. That's the last thing you want. You want your kids to feel comfortable to come to you. So admitting that you don't know everything is one way of starting too. And then also just being available for them and ask them, what do you think that is? What, when they come home with a topic, what do you think that is? And then go from there. Mm-hmm. They might not know anything about it at all. And it might be so inappropriate that you don't have to talk about it, right? But if they have heard something super inappropriate and they've heard the words, then you do have to talk about it. So it's really about creating a back and forth relationship rather than any sort of lecturing or making them regret coming to you about anything.
Yeah. So one of those tough conversations is probably, getting their first smartphone or having their first social media accounts. How do you prepare teens for those situations when it comes to the boundaries? Are they ready for it yet? And kind of like how the family communication around all that's going to go.
I think that if you yourself have a smartphone as the parent, then you have to accept that your child will eventually have a smartphone. I think there are a lot of parents out there that would love to have this idea that their kid will never get a smartphone. But the reality is that that's unless, all these tech companies just completely go away, they're going to get a smartphone.
Right.
And so having conversations with them with that knowledge, kind of the same as, and I know a lot of people use this analogy of our kids driving, right? I like to go back to the very beginning of, I don't know a single parent that does not strap their kid in a car seat. And it doesn't matter what kind of fit the kid throws. It does not matter. You have to get strapped in because we have to get to the grocery store. And so as the child grows and it's age appropriate, they graduate to the next car seat or the next situation or the seat belt, eventually the front seat, and then the driver's seat. And that's how I think of smart devices, is that we want them to graduate to where they are eventually able to manage a smart device with no problem at all. And so it starts young, but it also, you can start wherever you're at. We have to ask, what do you need this phone for, right? And so if the answer is, well, I want to be able to call you when I get out of soccer practice. Okay, great. I don't think that means that they should get a smartphone, right? Especially if I usually say before junior year of high school, which I know it's so unpopular to say that out loud. But that is also why I love the alternatives like Bark, because Bark can grow with your child. And it looks like a smartphone, acts like it is a smartphone, but it's like the smartest version of a smartphone because it's keeping your kids from stumbling into the other stuff. And my two oldest have the Bark phone, and I'm extremely comfortable with that. But if I handed them a regular Android or an iPhone, I would be so uncomfortable. My anxiety would be through the roof. So it depends on your kid. Every kid is different. Every family is different. Every situation is different. But overall, you want to avoid screen addiction, which means games. So when my son asks me if he can download Retro Bowl or, I don't even know, Brawl Stars, whatever, like, no, because that's going to trigger or that's going to potentially lead to screen addiction. And that's not the purpose of me allowing you to have this phone. Now, when he goes to college or when he's old enough, he can download whatever he wants, right? But I want him to be able to manage it at that point. So again, okay, so answering the question, knowing whether or not they're ready for a smartphone is, what are they going to need it for? And how can we avoid screen addiction? We want to make sure they're not socially isolating. We want to make sure that they're still developing properly social skills and prioritizing activity and family and friends in real life, not just online. And then with social media, what I have my clients do is they have to list at least 10 harms that come with social media. Now, I have a growing list of, I think I'm at 43 right now, and it keeps growing. When I wrote my book back in 2019, I think I had 5 harms of social media. And unfortunately, it keeps growing. But we want to know that our kids are aware. So if they can name at least 10, and they usually can name the biggest ones, then we know that they're aware of what could potentially happen or what will happen, unfortunately. And then you make a plan of, okay, what do you do when someone says something like that to you? What are you going to do when a predator or a stranger tries to talk to you? So they share what they're aware of, and then you make a plan for each one. And it needs to always be, you come tell me, and we talk about it, and you need to always thank them for coming to you. So social media, I'm not a fan of kids having social media until 15, 16 years old, like junior year of high school. And smartphones, luckily we have other options now, but I would say a smartphone that is just free for them to do whatever they want, I wouldn't until they are well into high school.
as like an aside, I was watching Grown Ups last night, which I haven't
Mm-hmm.
watched in forever. And Adam Sandler's family has like, he has like the two boys, and they're just like texting constantly. Like that's all. And like he gets so annoyed with them, and then he finally sees one of them like pick up a rock, and he's like, oh, throw it, like skip it into the water. He's like, throw it at your brother. I don't care what you do with it. Like do something with the rock. And he like just drops it. And that was before it was like a smartphone.
Right.
Like it's crazy.
Have you seen This Is 40?
I have, yes.
Do you remember there's a whole scene when they're eating dinner outside? And when did This Is 40 come out?
Oh, gosh.
Because it came out before all of this, I feel like. No?
Let's see.
Or maybe within all of this?
2012.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like right after Instagram was a thing. So right when things are really vamping up, but there's a whole scene of like Paul Rudd and Leslie Mann and the two girls sitting at a table outside eating dinner, and they're like, and no more internet past 8 p.m. And they're like, what? And they like flip out, and she's like, yes, you need to be in real life. You need to be around people. And so I think that as adults, like there has been concern for a while. Even my parents, like my brother played a lot of Nintendo 64, which is so like the least addicting like game console, but like he played Bond and Zelda and Mario Kart, right? And they were concerned about him playing too much video games back then. And so I think that parents have been worried about these issues for a while, but now it truly feels so uncontrollable and overwhelming that I think parents would rather not worry about it. And a lot of times just be like, it's fine. My kid would never do that, or it's fine. That would never happen. Or if it happens, we'll deal with it then.
Yeah.
And that's what I really try to encourage parents to not have that way of thinking. I think that I get accused of fear mongering. Like on my Instagram account, I get messages often that I'm just fear mongering, which that is never my intention. However, if it is instilling fear in people, there's a reason for that, right? Like life has given us this thing called anxiety to wake us up and make us pay attention to things. And I think that there's debilitating fear, and then there's fear that can empower us. And I try to help people see that you can actually do something about this. You can make changes, and you don't have to be scared of your kid who won't get off the video game, and you don't have to be scared of the other parents at the school, and you don't have to live in this fearful mindset where you're looking the other way. You can actually do something about this for the sake of your kids' mental health and your mental health. I mean, I can't stress that enough. The amount of anxiety that parents feel when they're trying to do the right thing, or when they just try to look the other way. I mean, it's astronomical. And so I really try to empower fear in a good way because it is scary.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And you kind of started to touch on this, but and we've talked a little bit about that instant gratification and the need for like, I need it now, like immediately. But what are the mental health impacts of growing up in this instant gratification culture, and how screens are affecting the coping skills and the resilience of kids?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that the conveniences of technology has taken away little moments through someone's upbringing of learning resilience. And I know, like some people, I give the example of, going to Blockbuster to rent a movie, and that whole process can take so long. You finally get home, you have to rewind because not everyone's kind. My sister has to go to the bathroom, we have to wait, and then you put the movie on and the FBI warning comes on, and then the previews, and then finally you get the movie. And that whole process can take, really up to 2 hours if you really scroll the aisles long enough. And that's such a simple thing that now we're like, oh, it's so convenient that I can just sit on the couch and just put in my password and we get the movie right away. And I love that convenience. We deserve that convenience. But it's stripping the younger generation from learning just simple patience or resilience through the typical life stressors or the typical annoyances, so that when they hit those hormonal years and they start to experience really big emotions that they can't articulate or know why it's happening, they want an instant fix. And unfortunately, there's no instant fix for emotional distress. No therapy, no medicine. It doesn't exist. And so what we see happening is a rise in depression, medication, diagnoses, suicide, and self-harm. And it's really not fair to our kids. But no one intended this to happen either, right? It is nice to put in the password really quick, or to take a picture and see it right away instead of having to wait until the whole roll of film is completed. But it is unintentionally creating a whole generation, or it has created a whole generation of kids. And now they're young adults. I work with a lot of, college-age kids who struggle with regulating themselves through either typical life stressors or the really big things that we all go through in life.
Gosh. I have cousins who I call them like my little cousins. They're not little anymore. The twins are 18 and Anna Kate is 17. And so they're young adults. Like my mom sent me a calendar invite recently for like their high school graduation. I was like, how is this possible? I grew up in the era of...
How old are you?
32.
Okay.
So I was the Tumblr era was like my first real... Yeah, God, and it was terrible.
Yes.
Like and that was, anonymous accounts because that was just how it worked, but you could figure out who was who anyway, so it didn't really matter. But I just think about them and they're great, very smart kids, and I hope that they don't deal with, the anxiety and all of the things that social media causes. But I just can't imagine, I'm not a parent, so I certainly can't imagine being a parent raising kids today, but being a teen today and growing up just with the pressures of having this perfect Instagram feed or, the algorithms that they get fed, and almost believing like that's like the ideal, like that's where I want to get to, and like the pressure that puts on them. Do you have any bits of advice for teens maybe or parents who they're trying to help their teens through that specifically?
So every time I go speak in public to parents, I always open it up with kind of what I said earlier about fear, that anxiety is a good thing. And that when we feel it, and I always end up pointing to my stomach because I feel it in my stomach when I get anxiety. When we start to feel that, we have got to pay attention to what might be causing that. And so what I work with my clients, my older clients, whether they're teenagers or they already have social media, is when do you get that gut feeling that this isn't right? What are you looking at that doesn't feel good for you? And when you put your phone down, how does that feel? And every time, I'm not exaggerating, and I didn't do a scientific study on this, but anecdotally, every time when they scroll social media, they feel that huge like gut feeling of this isn't right and I shouldn't be doing this, or I don't like the way this feels. And it's hard because as adults, we're on social media too. And so I know for me, I'll click on that icon and my intent is only to check for 5 minutes, right? But then, oh my gosh, it's been 2 hours, right? And so that can be really hard too, is recognizing how much it's consuming your life. And as humans, we find relatability with the things that we consume. So if we are scrolling TikTok and there's a lot of things about being skinny, or even working out, or healthy eating, or how to get your ribs to look like they're popping out, whatever, you're going to be affected by that. There's no getting around that. It doesn't matter how old you are. The younger you are, though, because your brain is not fully developed, your prefrontal cortex is the last piece of your brain to fully develop, and that's all the cognitive thinking and the emotional regulation and the consequence thinking and the risk assessment and the impulse control. All of that makes them so much more vulnerable to the content that they are consuming. So that's why, we don't show a 5-year-old rated R horror film, right? But we're handing them an iPad or a tablet and letting them watch YouTube, and there's tons of rated R, rated X content on there. And I think that parents just are not aware of how easy it is to go from watching, Bluey to something really inappropriate or something that could scare them. So what I teach teens is to listen to that anxiety, or whatever word you want to call it, that feeling of discomfort, and to pay attention to that and to set your own boundaries. It's very hard for teens to set their own boundaries, so I usually try to pull mom and dad into that agreement so that they can set it so that the phone shuts down at a certain time, or they have to leave it, with mom and dad overnight or something like that. But people think this is why people laughed at me back in 2015, 2016, because I'm coming across as like so dramatic of like, if you give your 2-year-old a tablet every time they whine, they could potentially have mental illnesses down the line. But it's happening. It truly is happening. And it's something that I see almost every day with my clientele. And it's really sad and it's really hard. And when kids, especially those preteen ages and young teenage, when they're feeling those big emotions for the first time, they are finding how they want to handle situations. They are figuring out how they want to cope through life's hardships. And whatever they start to do at those very crucial, sensitive years could be with them for the rest of their life. So if they get on YouTube or TikTok when they're bored, or they're upset, or their mom just yelled at them and they just want to numb out, and then there's something on that algorithm or that platform that is, for example, self-harm awareness. So it's like a good thing that they're seeing, but it triggers the idea, I'm so upset, my mom just yelled at me, I didn't do everything I was supposed to do, and now she hates me. The world is coming to an end. I don't know what to feel, what to think. I don't know what to do. I just want to feel better. I don't want to feel anything at all. Let me get on my device and scroll. Oh, I could do something like that. And then they could potentially start a coping skill that could be with them. And it's very hard. And that's where therapists come in, because we're there to try to reverse some of that unhealthy coping skills. But it's hard. I'm not going to lie. It is very hard to do that. It's definitely possible. But if we could prevent it altogether so that our kids can have strong mental health by the time they're 12, 13 years old, and say their friend does show them something, they are able to handle it with a little bit more strength and
awareness.
Yeah.
I love it. What are some ways that parents themselves can model healthy tech habits and communications?
I love this question because I am living it constantly, and I'm always like, ooh, I should try that. Always. So the biggest one I tell people is to narrate why you are picking up your phone. That's all you have to do. You need to check the weather. You need to check your email. You need to text back Aunt Sarah. You just say it out loud. Whether they're listening or not, you make it a habit that we're going to just say what we're doing so that I'm not just playing Candy Crush, or I'm not scrolling Instagram, or I'm not ignoring you. I remember when one of the twins, he was like 4, maybe 4-ish, came to me and asked if we were going to so-and-so's birthday party. And without me responding, in my head, I'm like, oh, shoot, I totally forgot about so-and-so's birthday party. And I grab my phone and I'm scrolling my phone. Where's that email, that Evite? When is it? What time is it at? How are we going to make that work with baseball practice? Oh my gosh, is it supposed to rain? Oh, and I still need to get a gift from Target or whatever. Blah, blah, blah. And all he sees is the back of my phone. So he starts to throw a fit. And my response is, sir, you do not need to throw a fit in the middle of the kitchen for no reason. I'm trying to give you an answer. I'm literally speaking to a 4-year-old like this. Like, how horrible. And then it just hit me so hard. Sweet thing doesn't know that I'm trying to find the answer for him.
Right.
He has no idea. I literally just picked it up right in front of his face. He thinks I'm ignoring him. And I will never forget that moment. And that was the moment that I was like, oh, I need to tell people why I'm picking up the phone. And I think it's important for marriages, friendships. You're out to eat together and who you're with just starts getting their phone out and just, what?
Yeah.
You know?
I was thinking to myself, like, that's something I need to start announcing, because I hate, and I like to think that my friends and I are pretty good about, staying off of our phones. A lot of times I honestly keep mine in my purse if I'm out, and I just don't even like pay attention to it. But there are times where I'm like, sorry, I like really need to check on this. Or like, for example, like, I've been gone for a few hours. I need to check the dogs on my cameras. Like, that's all I'm doing. I promise I'm not like ignoring you. But I think
just
even
a simple, like, hold on really quick. I have to finish this. Okay.
Yep. So that you're
I'm
fully
here.
present. Yeah. Like, I'm paying attention. You got me 100%.
And so I get mad at my husband because he's not as good at narrating. And there are times when it's just he and I hanging out. And I'm just like, what are you doing on your phone? Like, I've been talking to you about this for 10 years. Like, what are you doing? So many years ago, my oldest son, he had the great idea that we should have a code word. Anytime someone is on their phone or their device. So he's talking about me and his dad, right? Because they didn't at the time at all. Like, he was 8 or something.
Wow.
And I mean, there are other members of our family that are on their phones a lot. And I think we were all together, but it was his idea that there needs to be a way to signal to the other person, do you mind getting off your phone? And I love that, because the nagging feeling of get off your phone, or what are you doing? Like, that does not feel good. I don't like saying it. I don't like hearing it. Like, and then inevitably the other person is like, I'm just looking at something for work, And it's like, okay, you're allowed to be on your phone. But I don't know what you're doing. I thought we were going to have like a little date night, or I thought we were all going to watch a movie together, And so it's just that communication that might look a little different, but also the code word helps with signaling, please get off your phone. I need your attention, or I want your attention, or I want you to get off your flipping phone and hang out with me without saying, I want you to get off your flipping phone,
Right.
And what I like about that too is if you forget to narrate, because we are human, right? And somebody walks in the room and they weren't in the room originally, it gives them the permission to say, hey, and say that our code word is muskrat. So, they'll be like muskrat, and that gives you the opportunity then to say, oh, hold on, buddy, I have to check this email, because if I don't finish this, then I'll totally forget to do it later. But give me just a second, and then I want to hear what you're up to and what you want to talk about. So we allow the boys to call us out anytime, and either we explain why we need to be on the phone that moment, or we go, there are a lot of times that we think in our head, I don't really actually need to be on the phone right now, right? And so every family has to figure out what works for them. But again, with the goal of communication, face-to-face time together, avoiding screen addiction, and avoiding harmful exposure for our kids too.
I love it. Muskrat's a good one.
And it's really easy as a parent to get mad and say, you don't tell me what to do. You don't tell me to put my phone down. I pay for these devices. I pay for this house. I provide food. You don't tell me what to do. It is very easy for parents to think that way. However, for the sake of the relationship, as well as mutual respect, and then when they're older and they have their own device and you're calling the family code word out on them, you want them to respond with respect as well. So it's really important for parents to kind of put that pride or feeling aside and just go with the new normal of,
we're all in this together.
Yeah.
I love it. Tessa, thank you so much for joining us and sharing all of the incredible knowledge that you have. I feel like I am walking away with lessons myself, and I'm not even a parent. But it's been really, really awesome to hear the things that you've had to share today. Is there anything we didn't touch on or any parting words of wisdom you want to leave the audience with?
I think that this is a very tough situation. This is a tough hurdle for so many families. And what I tell parents is, one is if your gut is telling you something is wrong, if they come to you wanting a new app or a new device or a new game and it doesn't feel good, either figure out how to make it so that you're comfortable by doing your own research, or stick with only going with the things that make you feel comfortable, because there's so many it's evolving so fast that it's impossible to stay on top of all of it, that it's okay to say no to your kids. It really is. And that struggle for them being, quote unquote, the only kid without Roblox or the only kid without Snapchat is a very good struggle for them, because they're learning resilience through that. Anytime a neurotypical kid is responding to anything, but especially screens, in a way that mimics maybe a 2-year-old's tantrum, there's something wrong. And that's what we're seeing a lot of. If they're throwing remote controls across the room, if they are smashing TVs, if they are truly having a mental breakdown and they're like 15 years old or 9 years old, there's something wrong. And that anxiety is trying to tell you something, or that gut feeling is trying to tell you. So if you're stuck battling with your child on screen time or what they can do on a screen, and it has turned into this tumultuous, and it's turned into this tumultuous situation within your house, then you've got to reset. You've got to reorganize your perspective and your goals and your boundaries all together so that they can be healthy and you as well.
I love it. That's great. Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us. It was great. And if there's anything that we at BARC can do to help support you, we're always here.
Yeah. And I also want to add that me talking about the BARC phone is a genuine love for BARC, because when I had clients before the BARC phone existed and the parents would be like, what do we do? They have to have a phone. I would literally look at them and be like, I don't know. Yeah. There's nothing that I would feel comfortable giving my kid if I was you, Right. And then you guys, BARC came out with the phone, and it's been a game changer, and I genuinely feel that way. So
well,
thank you.
We appreciate that. Yeah, no, engineering, they're incredible, and they've built some amazing products for us, and we're happy that they're out there to help keep kids safer.